friends, and welcome back to The Third Door. This is a series of conversations about the yes and in life and in business. In our introduction to The Third Door, we talked a little bit about this idea of there being a way that we can walk in the world that isn't black and white. It isn't either or. It isn't strictly right, wrong. It's this idea that there are liminal spaces in between, that if we seek the opportunity for the opening into the new spaces, into the third door, that we can invite spaciousness, that we can invite new options that maybe weren't on the table before, that we can step into what it is to be a modern mystic or a new paradigm thinker in ways that gets us out of the polarity and duality and into a space where we can co-create the solutions that are so wanting to be brought into form in these times. Building on that concept of the third door begs the question, who are the seekers of the third door? Why are we seeing these alternatives and new paradigm solutions wanting to show themselves? What is afoot that has us seeking these new ways and new pathways? Part of what I see in the seekers of the third door are people who are walking with a foot in two worlds. In the mystics landscape, we call ourselves Bridgewalkers. It's this idea that, look, we all have one part of ourselves that is walking in the real world. We are bankers, we are doctors, we are mothers, we are entrepreneurs, we are writers, we are creatives, we're consultants. And all of that means that we walk in and of a world that is constrained by the constructs of our society. We have to get up and go to work, most likely. We have to have financial and legal structures around us. We need to have agreements with our clients. We need and we want to have good rhythms and commitments and excellence and service in what we bring forward, right? All of those things are very much part of the traditional construct of life and business, these roles, these hats that we wear, these things that we do to be functioning and productive and a part of the society that we live in. But many of us who seek the third door also have a foot in another side. We have a foot in the realm of potential and possibility. We have a foot in the realm of the magical, the unseen realm. We have a foot in the part of our human existence that maybe hasn't yet been fully explained by science or by the thought leaders of our times. Many of the inner callings, that inner drumbeat that we hear come from seeds planted long, long ago. The parts of us that maybe remember what it is to be connected in different ways. The parts of us that remember what it is to have sensory experiences that are connected to nature, that are connected to the people that we love, that are connected to the natural rhythms, that are connected to the cosmic rhythms. So the idea of being a bridge walker is this thing of it doesn't have to be an either or between those two worlds. One of the things that I think is actually trying to shift most evidently in these times is actually the walls and the barriers that are keeping these two paradigms separate. I have been a part of walking in the world of bridge walking between business and mysticism for many years now. For a long time, when I was working in management consulting and in software and in IT, I felt like it was actually my job to keep the mystical and the magical and the intuitive side of me quiet, right? There were ways to engage in the world that would allow me to benefit from them internally, but it certainly wasn't something to consider to sit down at the table, sit down in a project management meeting, sit down in a boardroom and start talking about mysticism and intuition, right? We couch those things. We would hide those things. We would say, well, my gut says, because somehow that's appropriate to say in business, but it's not okay to say I have a hit or my instinct is telling me, right? So I actually thought it was my job to keep that side of me constrained a little bit. Part of what I learned, though, is that as we constrain the parts of ourselves that are in the knowing, that are in the feeling, that are in the sensing, our bodies start to object, right? So much of what we're seeing in the form of chronic illness, chronic stress, chronic anxiety, overwhelm, is this thing of keeping aspects of self compartmentalized and bottled. If you're an artist, but you're only showing up in the logical engineering mind, right? You ultimately are hamstrung from the full expression of your gifts. If you're a doctor, but you also have visual images that guide you to where your patient has experienced trauma and you're not bringing that forward, it's like having one arm tied behind your back, right? What we're being called to do is bring those sides forward and to integrate them again so that we can effectively be whole, be in the true expression of ourselves. For me, that meant finding ways to bring in the mysticism and the intuitive arts into the business landscape. My first opportunity to really do this was in working with John Young and the Eight Shields Institute, which is a global organization that is absolutely committed to bringing forward these lost original instructions, the deep nature connection, the cultural repair that would allow us to move beyond this idea that life or business or community or whatever it might be have to follow only modern constructs. The Eight Shields Institute is an organization that starts every meeting with a gratitude. It's an organization that seeks to spend as much time outside as it does inside. It's an organization that teaches a mentoring model and what's called an ACORN model that provides an alternative to hierarchical based leadership. Spending time working with the Eight Shields Institute was one of the first places where I kind of looked around the room and went, wait, we all get to just be who we are? Like, it's okay to raise your hand and share the dream you had or the insight that's coming through or the knowing that you have in your body, but you feel like you would typically have to couch that in traditional strategic terms, right? And what was beautiful about it was such a robust team then, because everybody had their full self in the conversation. The engineer who was also a poet, the leader, the nature connection leader, who was also a tracker, me, who had business and marketing experience, but am also a profound intuitive strategist. It's like doubling the team, doubling the power. So it's not just good for the human self, the individual self. Ultimately, being a Bridgewalker and allowing your full integrated self is good for business. It's a way to help maximize the potential of the individual, but also the co-creation. It's not just about maximizing from a sense of the traditional, not even traditional, the modern capitalist sense of extracting the most out of a business or individuals. It's about amplifying the most. It's about honoring the full wheel of each person. So when we think about who are the individuals, who are the modern mystics, who are the ones who are seeking the third door, most typically they're Bridgewalkers. Looking at your own world, looking at your own interests and passions, identifying the ways in which you're a Bridgewalker. These are the ways that you can create more ease and grace in your life, that you can step out of the conflict within. The ability to say, I am a yes and. Yes, I'm a phenomenal physician, but I'm also deeply intuitive. Yes, I'm an incredible engineer, but I also love literature and poetry. Finding that way that you have your bridge walking within you and allowing yourself to bring it forward. I'm a badass negotiator, but I'm also a peacemaker. This invites the third door. This bridge walking is part of what we are drawing forward in these times that create alternatives to the broken ways that are no longer serving. We are seeing constructs and paradigms crumbling all around us. Why? Because we didn't make space for the bend. We didn't make space for the lean. We didn't make space for the ebb and the flow. We didn't make space for the new paradigm. When we can open up the third door, when we stand in our truth as bridge walkers, we create spaciousness. We create opportunity. We create entirely new paradigms to replace the old ones. My grandfather was a friend of Buckminster Fuller, and they had some sweet connection and sweet exchanges between them. But I always think about Buckminster Fuller when I think about the third door and bridge walking, because he was such a strong advocate for not simply continuing down the path of what's not working, right? He was one of the early advocates of creating an entirely new way. And how do we create the new way? We see what we have that's usable and helpful and golden, and we take that, but then we invite that which hasn't even been dreamt before. And I promise you, we don't dream those new disruptive paradigm shifting solutions from a place that's mired solely in the old. We create and we invite those alternatives and those solutions when we're truly in our gift as bridge walkers, when we come into the space of the yes and. So I want to encourage you to think about the ways in which you're a bridge walker today. This doesn't mean you have to go hang your mystic shingle. This doesn't mean you have to go rewrite your copy. This doesn't mean you have to burst into your boss's office and say, it's true, I'm an artist. You can, In fact, the more comfortable you get with being a bridge walker, the less you're going to want to hide any of your glorious self. But it doesn't have to be that way. It simply means, how can I show up in more alignment to the full truth of who I am? How can I honor the fact that I have a foot in two worlds? How can I start to bring in the vocabulary of my world, the gold and the blessing of these two landscapes that I get to draw upon to create in the world? I'd love to hear from you. In what way are you a bridge walker? What does the word bridge walker bring up for you? How does this help you lean into the third door? I want to thank you all so much for being here and being a part of the conversation. Thank you for being bridge walkers in this world, and thank you for stepping into the third door. So much love and gratitude to you. I'll see you all online.